The crisp autumn air filled the woods of Clearwater Hollow, a sprawling forest known for its towering pines and winding trails. Amber and crimson leaves carpeted the forest floor, crunching softly under the hooves of a magnificent chestnut horse named Rusty. His sleek coat shone in the dappled sunlight, breaking through the canopy above, and his deep brown eyes radiated intelligence. Rusty's rider, Clara Morgan, a 27-year-old avid equestrian with a love for exploration, had been planning this trail ride for weeks. Clara had grown up in Clearwater Hollow, spending her childhood summers galloping through its vast meadows and weaving through the dense thickets. After years away in the city pursuing her career as a veterinarian, she had returned to her roots, seeking solace and familiarity. Rusty had been her steadfast companion for nearly 6 years, a spirited yet loyal horse that had become more like family than a pet. Before we continue with the video and dive deeper into the incredible story, I want to ask for your help. I'm aiming to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and your support would mean the world to me. If you've been enjoying this content, please hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. And let me know where you're watching from in the comments down below. Today's ride was meant to be a relaxing escape from Clara's busy life. She had saddled Rusty early that morning, excited to follow a new trail she'd heard about from a fellow rider. The path supposedly led to a hidden clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley, untouched by human hands. Armed with her GPS and a small pack of supplies, Clara felt prepared for an adventure. The trail was serene, winding through groves of birch trees and over small, babbling streams. Rusty's ears swiveled back and forth as he listened to the sounds of the forest, his steps steady and confident. Clara couldn't help but smile as she ran her fingers through his mane. "This is what life's all about, boy," she said softly. Rusty let out a soft whinny in response, as if agreeing with her. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere began to shift. The trail narrowed and the forest grew denser, the trees casting long shadows over the path. The usual rustling of leaves and chirping of birds faded into an eerie stillness. Rusty's movements slowed, his muscles tensing beneath Clara as he raised his head and sniffed the air. "Easy, Rusty," Clara murmured, patting his neck reassuringly. She glanced around, her heart beating a little faster. The woods didn't feel quite so welcoming now. Her GPS showed they were still on course, though the trail ahead seemed more overgrown than she had expected. Clara decided to press on, urging Rusty forward with a gentle nudge of her heels. "We'll find that clearing soon enough," she said, more to herself than to the horse. Suddenly, Rusty stopped dead in his tracks, his ears pinning back as he let out a loud snort. Clara tightened her grip on the reins, scanning the area for any sign of danger. A split second later, Rusty reared up, his powerful front legs kicking at the air. Clara barely had time to react before she was thrown from the saddle, hitting the ground with a thud. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and for a moment, everything was a blur. Pain shot through her side, and her head throbbed as she struggled to sit up. Rusty stood a few feet away, his nostrils flaring and his eyes wide with alarm. He stomped his hooves, letting out a series of nervous snorts as he looked back toward Clara. "I'm okay," Clara managed to say, though her voice was weak. She tried to push herself up, but a sharp pain in her ankle made her gasp. Looking down, she realized with a sinking feeling that her foot was twisted at an unnatural angle. Panic set in as she tried to assess her situation. Her phone, which had been clipped to her saddlebag, was now out of reach on Rusty's side. "Rusty!" she called weakly, hoping the horse would calm down enough to come closer, but Rusty seemed frozen, his gaze fixed on something deeper in the woods. Clara followed his line of sight, her stomach tightening as she noticed the faint rustling of bushes a few yards away. The silence that followed was deafening. Clara's mind raced as she tried to recall what kinds of wildlife lived in Clearwater Hollow. Coyotes, maybe a bear. She tried to steady her breathing, hoping to appear less vulnerable, but the pain in her ankle made it impossible to move. Then, to her astonishment, Rusty turned back toward her, his body language shifting from fear to determination. He trotted over, lowering his head as if to inspect her. "Good boy," Clara whispered, reaching out to touch his muzzle. "It's okay. I just need a little help." Rusty pawed at the ground, his large eyes filled with concern. Clara knew she couldn't get back on his saddle in her current state, but she hoped he would stay close while she figured out what to do. She gently tugged on his reins, coaxing him to stand still. That's when Rusty did something extraordinary. The horse turned abruptly, trotting toward the overgrown bushes that had caused his initial alarm. Clara watched in disbelief as he pushed his way through the dense foliage, his ears twitching as if listening for something. "Rusty!" she called after him, her voice breaking with desperation. She couldn't bear the thought of being left alone in the woods, especially with an injured ankle. But Rusty didn't go far. A moment later, he returned, carrying something in his mouth. Clara squinted, trying to make out what it was. To her amazement, it was her GPS unit, which had been thrown from her pack during the fall. He gently dropped it at her feet, nickering softly as if to say, "I've got this." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes as she reached for the device. "You clever boy," she murmured, her voice trembling with gratitude. The GPS still worked, though the screen was cracked. Clara quickly activated the emergency beacon, hoping the signal would be strong enough to alert search and rescue teams. Rusty stood by her side, his presence steady and comforting. Clara stroked his neck, finding solace in his quiet strength. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, though she wasn't entirely sure if she believed it. As the minutes stretched into an hour, the forest grew colder, the setting sun casting long shadows over the trail. Clara's ankle throbbed with each passing moment, but she focused on staying calm. Rusty remained vigilant, his ears swiveling at every sound. He pawed the ground occasionally, as if trying to keep Clara's spirits up. Finally, the distant sound of voices broke through the stillness. Clara's heart leapt as she spotted the faint glow of flashlights weaving through the trees. Rusty let out a loud whinny, his powerful voice echoing through the woods and guiding the rescuers to their location. "Over here!" Clara called, her voice weak but filled with relief. A team of 3 rescuers emerged from the shadows, their faces etched with concern. One of them, a tall man with a warm smile, knelt beside Clara. "We've got you," he said gently, inspecting her ankle. "It looks like a bad sprain, but we'll get you out of here." As they prepared to lift Clara onto a stretcher, Rusty stepped forward, his eyes locked on the rescuers. One of them reached out to pat his neck. "This horse of yours is incredible," the man said, his tone filled with admiration. "He led us straight to you." Clara smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with pride. "He's more than incredible," she said softly. "He's a hero." As the rescuers carried Clara back toward the main trail, Rusty followed closely, his every step a testament to his unwavering loyalty. But as they made their way through the darkening woods, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that Rusty's extraordinary behavior was just the beginning of something even more remarkable. Clara spent the night at the hospital, her injured ankle wrapped tightly in a splint. The doctors assured her it was just a severe sprain, but they advised her to stay off her feet for several weeks. Though she was relieved to have avoided a more serious injury, Clara couldn't stop thinking about the events in the woods. Rusty's actions had been extraordinary. His quick thinking and determination had saved her when she felt utterly helpless. As Clara lay in her hospital bed, her mind replayed the moment Rusty had retrieved her GPS unit from the bushes. She couldn't shake the feeling that his behavior was more than just loyalty. It was almost as if he knew something she didn't. The next morning, Clara was discharged and driven home by her friend Megan. Megan was a fellow horse enthusiast and had agreed to check on Rusty while Clara was in the hospital. As they pulled into Clara's driveway, Rusty stood at the edge of the paddock, his head held high as he watched the car approach. The moment Clara stepped out, he let out a loud whinny and trotted to the fence, his ears flicking forward eagerly. "You weren't kidding about how special he is," Megan said, smiling as she helped Clara hobble toward the fence on her crutches. "It's like he knew you were coming home." Clara laughed softly, wincing as she shifted her weight. "He's one of a kind. I just wish I knew what spooked him out there." Rusty nuzzled Clara's shoulder, his warm breath puffing against her jacket. She stroked his neck, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the horse who had been her steadfast companion through thick and thin. "You're amazing, Rusty," she murmured. "Thank you for taking care of me." But as the days passed, Clara noticed something unusual about Rusty's behavior. He had always been a spirited horse, full of energy and curiosity. Now he seemed restless, pacing the paddock and pawing at the ground near the gate. His usual enthusiasm for morning rides and grooming sessions was tempered by a strange focus on the woods behind Clara's property. He would stand at the edge of the fence, his ears swiveling toward the trees as if waiting for something or someone. "Do you think he's just shaken up from the fall?" Megan asked one afternoon as she helped Clara clean Rusty's stall. "Maybe," Clara replied, though she wasn't convinced. "But it feels like more than that. He's acting like there's something out there he's trying to tell me about." Megan arched an eyebrow. "You think he wants to go back to the trail?" Clara hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the woods in the distance. "I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that we missed something." Despite her injured ankle, Clara couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. She spent hours researching the history of Clearwater Hollow, hoping to find clues about what might have unsettled Rusty. What she discovered surprised her. The woods had once been home to a small mining settlement in the late 1800s. The settlement, known as Silver Brook, had thrived for a time before a massive flood washed away much of the infrastructure. The survivors had abandoned the area, leaving behind only scattered ruins and a few stories about the lost treasures buried in the forest. Clara was intrigued. She wondered if Rusty's behavior had something to do with the remnants of Silver Brook. Perhaps there were old structures or artifacts hidden near the trail they had taken. The idea seemed far-fetched, but Clara couldn't ignore the strange pull she felt toward the woods. The following weekend, despite Megan's protests, Clara decided to revisit the trail. With her crutches tucked into her truck and Rusty's tack in the back seat, she loaded her horse into the trailer and drove to the trailhead. Megan had reluctantly agreed to accompany her, serving as both moral support and a backup pair of eyes. "You're stubborn, you know that?" Megan said as she helped Clara unload Rusty from the trailer. "But I guess I'd want answers too if my horse acted like yours did." Clara grinned. "You wouldn't miss this adventure for the world." The air was crisp and cool, the first hints of winter creeping into the breeze. Clara mounted Rusty carefully, adjusting her balance to accommodate her injured ankle. Megan followed on foot, leading a second horse she had brought along for the journey. As they made their way down the familiar trail, Clara kept a close eye on Rusty. His ears were perked forward, his movements deliberate and alert. When they reached the spot where Clara had fallen, Rusty stopped abruptly, his gaze fixed on the bushes where he had found the GPS unit. "What is it, boy?" Clara asked, leaning forward in the saddle. Rusty let out a soft nicker, pawing at the ground. Megan stepped closer, her brow furrowing as she scanned the area. "Maybe he's picking up a scent," she suggested. "It could be a wild animal." Clara wasn't convinced. She dismounted carefully, wincing as her ankle protested the movement. She hobbled toward the bushes, her fingers brushing aside the branches. At first, she saw nothing out of the ordinary, just leaves and twigs scattered on the forest floor. Then, something caught her eye. Half buried in the dirt was a small weathered box. Its edges were worn and the wood was splintered, but it was still intact. Clara's heart raced as she crouched down to pick it up, her fingers trembling. The box was heavier than she expected, and its surface was engraved with a faint pattern that resembled vines. "What is that?" Megan asked, stepping closer. "I don't know," Clara replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She brushed away the dirt, revealing a rusted metal clasp. With a gentle tug, the clasp gave way and the lid creaked open. Inside was a collection of old photographs, yellowed with age but surprisingly well preserved. There were black and white images of men and women dressed in turn-of-the-century clothing, standing in front of what appeared to be mining equipment. At the bottom of the box was a folded piece of parchment. Clara unfolded the parchment carefully, her breath catching as she read the handwritten text. "To whoever finds this land holds more than the stories we've told. Buried beneath these woods is a treasure worth more than gold. Our history, our sacrifice, our legacy. Protect it, honor it, and carry it forward. J.B., 1896. The note sent a shiver down Clara's spine. She glanced at Rusty, who was watching her intently, his tail swishing as if he understood the significance of their discovery. "This is incredible," Megan said, peering over Clara's shoulder. "You think this belonged to the miners from Silver Brook?" Clara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. The photographs and note seemed to confirm the connection. But why had Rusty been so drawn to this spot? And what did the note mean by treasure worth more than gold? As they packed up the box and prepared to head back to the trailhead, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. Rusty had led her to this discovery, but she sensed there was more to uncover, something that would change her understanding of Clearwater Hollow forever. Back at the farm, Clara and Megan spread the contents of the mysterious box across the kitchen table. Rusty stood nearby, his head poking in through the open door, as though he didn't want to miss a moment. Clara had never seen him so engaged, his large, intelligent eyes watching their every move. Megan picked up one of the black and white photographs, holding it under the light. "These people look like miners," she said, her finger tracing the edges of the faded image. "But look at this background. It's not a mine. It looks like a workshop or some sort of storeroom." Clara leaned closer, examining the details. Behind the miners were shelves filled with small jars, tools, and what appeared to be wooden crates. On one of the crates was a barely visible emblem, two interlocking pickaxes beneath an oak tree. It was faint, but it matched the engraving on the box lid. "This emblem must mean something," Clara murmured, her thoughts racing. She reached for the note again, rereading the line. "Buried beneath these woods is a treasure worth more than gold." Megan tapped her chin thoughtfully. Maybe it's a metaphor. The treasure could be these photographs, the stories of their lives. Maybe they wanted someone to preserve their legacy. Clara nodded, but something didn't sit right with her. Rusty had led them to the box with a determination that suggested more than mere chance. There had to be something else, something hidden in the woods. Over the next few days, Clara delved deeper into her research. She combed through local records at the Cedar Creek Historical Society, poring over old maps and journals. She discovered that Silver Brook had indeed been a bustling mining settlement in the 1800s, known for its small but profitable vein of silver. However, after the devastating flood, the miners had been forced to abandon the area. Some had relocated, but others had disappeared from the records entirely. One document caught her eye, a handwritten account from a miner named James Booker, who had been a leader in the community. He described the flood and its aftermath, mentioning a storeroom where the miners had stored valuable tools and supplies. The storeroom, he wrote, had been sealed by nature's fury, awaiting the hands of the worthy. Clara's heart raced as she realized the storeroom could still exist, buried somewhere in the woods. The phrase, awaiting the hands of the worthy, echoed in her mind, and she couldn't help but think of Rusty. Was it possible he had sensed something she couldn't? The following Saturday, Clara and Megan returned to the trail, this time armed with metal detectors, shovels, and a copy of the old map Clara had found. Rusty, ever the vigilant companion, stood calmly by the trailhead, his ears swiveling as if listening for guidance. "Ready to lead the way, boy?" Clara asked, patting his neck. Rusty snorted softly, nudging her shoulder before stepping onto the trail. They retraced their steps to the spot where they had found the box. From there, Clara and Megan examined the map, comparing the landmarks to the current landscape. The map showed a faint trail branching off from the main path leading deeper into the forest. It was overgrown now, but the contours of the land matched the map's markings. "This must be it," Megan said, holding up the map. "If the storeroom exists, it should be in that direction." Rusty stepped forward, his ears perked and his tail flicking. Clara followed his lead, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension as they ventured into the dense underbrush. The air was cool and quiet, save for the rustling of leaves underfoot and the occasional chirp of a bird. After nearly an hour of navigating the uneven terrain, Rusty stopped abruptly. He pawed at the ground, his hooves kicking up dirt and leaves. Clara and Megan exchanged a glance before kneeling to examine the area. "Do you think this is it?" Megan asked, brushing away the debris. Clara's pulse quickened. "There's only one way to find out." Using their shovels, they began to dig, the metal detectors humming softly as they swept the ground. The soil was dense and unyielding, but they pressed on, fueled by the anticipation of what they might uncover. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Clara's shovel struck something solid. She paused, her heart racing, before clearing away the dirt. Beneath the surface was a wooden beam, weathered but intact. As they dug further, the beam revealed itself to be part of a structure, wooden planks forming the top of what appeared to be a door. "It's real," Megan whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The storeroom is real." They cleared away the remaining dirt, exposing the full outline of the door. Rusty stood nearby, his nostrils flaring as he watched intently. Clara reached for the rusted metal handle, her fingers trembling as she pulled. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, musty interior. Clara turned on her flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. Inside was a small room, its walls lined with shelves holding an assortment of tools, jars, and crates. Some of the items had deteriorated over time, but others appeared remarkably well preserved. Clara's gaze fell on a large wooden chest in the center of the room, its surface adorned with the same emblem of interlocking pickaxes beneath an oak tree. With Megan's help, Clara pried open the chest. Inside were rows of small leather-bound journals, each marked with a date. Beneath them was a collection of silver coins, their surfaces tarnished but still gleaming in the dim light. "This is incredible," Clara said, her voice shaking. "These journals, they must tell the miners' stories." Megan picked up one of the coins, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is more than history. It's a treasure, just like the note said." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she realized the significance of their discovery. The miners of Silver Brook had left behind more than artifacts. They had left a legacy, a testament to their resilience and determination. In the days that followed, Clara worked tirelessly to preserve and document the contents of the storeroom. She reached out to the Cedar Creek Historical Society, sharing her findings and enlisting their help in restoring the artifacts. The journals provided a wealth of information about life in Silver Brook, offering a glimpse into the hardships and triumphs of the miners who had called it home. Rusty, as always, remained by Clara's side, his quiet strength a constant source of comfort. She often wondered how he had known to lead her to the storeroom, but perhaps some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved. What mattered was that he had guided her to something extraordinary, a piece of history that might have remained hidden forever without his intuition. The discovery brought new attention to the region, drawing historians, researchers, and visitors eager to learn about the legacy of Silver Brook. Clara found herself at the center of it all, her love for the land and its history shining through in every conversation. One evening, as she sat in the paddock with Rusty, she held one of the silver coins in her hand, its surface catching the fading light. "We did it, boy," she said softly, stroking his mane. "You knew there was something special out there, didn't you?" Rusty nickered in response, his dark eyes filled with a quiet wisdom. Clara smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the horse who had not only saved her, but had also led her to uncover a story worth telling. Together they had brought the past to life, ensuring that the voices of Silverbrook would never be forgotten.